Broadcasting live from the Subaru of Gwinnett Studios in Atlanta, it's time for On the Money, presented by Embassy National Bank. Now, here's your host, Joe Moss.
Hi, everybody. This is Joe Moss, and welcome to this week's edition of On the Money, the number one small business podcast on Business Radio X. As you know, the show is sponsored by Embassy National Bank. Embassy National Bank is a nationally chartered financial institution whose deposits are insured by the FDIC. So as we go through this and you hear the word embassy, think about us being a bank with deposits insured by the FDIC. We discuss topics designed to help small business learn how to succeed, because Embassy is proud of how we help small business. I'm Joe Moss, your moderator and president at the bank, and we come to you live from the global broadcast studios of Subaru of Gwinnett. We thank them for their support. What a great facility we're in. And we have speaking of Embassy being proud of how we help small business, we have one of our customers here with us today. Bryan Mulligan. Hey, Bryan.
Hey, Joe.
Bryan, tell everybody about Applied Information and your company, and then I'll tell you why we're so proud of you.
Hey, thanks, Joe. Applied Information is a technology company here in Atlanta, up in Swanee, north of Atlanta. And what we're focused is in the transportation area. And that's primarily surface transportation, which is cars and buses and so forth, and making the roads safer and more efficient for transportation. Key part of the economy, especially in Atlanta, which has this history of being a trading hub, and so the roads and transportation are hugely important to Atlanta. But anyway, what we do is we're focused on deploying technology, both embedded devices that go in vehicles and go on the roadside, the wireless communications, which these days is primarily cellular, and then these new cloud server technologies to be able to turn data into information, hence applied information. And what that does is we sell our products to DOTs and cities and counties and private sector to make transportation work better.
And you've got a lot of wins recently, and we'll go into those. But Embassy met you in 2014, and you were just starting up, as I recall.
Yeah, that's right. And, we'd started in 2012. And what we did is, the first favors of a technology business is inventing yourself. I've been doing this for a number of years, and so I had this idea that the Internet of Things and this wireless connectivity that we had was going to revolutionize how we did business in the transportation sector. And so the first couple of years were the heavy lifting of developing the technology, and then it's getting it out into the market, and then what I call this inflection point of when do you know that you've got a winner on your hands, and you can then fly into the market, with both guns blazing, and make a great success of the business. And that's the year that we had in 2015, is achieving that inflection point. So now 2016 is our execution year as far as
you've been doing
size.
well all along. I've been to your offices, and you've got prototypes out there, and then you can show us the type of successes you've been having. And so someone that's been in the business as long as you now, you had to have some early successes in order to have some cash flow to keep going forward.
Sure, but one of the things about the entrepreneurial business, and this probably applies to a range of entrepreneurial businesses, but certainly the technology entrepreneurial business, it always takes twice as long and costs twice as much money as you think. It's just the way it is.
Yeah, that's always the way it is. Well, let's talk about give someone the specifics of one of your products.
Okay. So
because it's difficult for the layman to understand exactly what you do.
Sure. And so what I'm going to do is not give you the sales pitch as much as talk about data and what information is, what data is telling us about how dangerous roads are. So, for example, in the United States, about 800 people are killed a year in collisions between emergency vehicles and other vehicles while trying to go through traffic intersections responding to an emergency.
We just had one of those here in Atlanta.
Right.
And that poor little girl ended up on the other side of the hedge, as I recall.
And so what happens, I mean, we all sat at a traffic light, and we hear the siren, we don't know where it's coming from. Do you go forward? Do you go back? And so forth. And everybody tries to be as safe as they can. But statistically what happens is that periodically you get accidents. And when the emergency vehicle's flying through the intersection,
won't be pretty, will it?
It won't be pretty. So what do? Is we have technology that goes in the fire truck or the response vehicle, the ambulance, technology that goes in the roadside. And what we do is, because we know where the vehicle is and how fast it's going and where it's going, when we detect that it's approaching an intersection, at that intersection, we bring all the lights, turn them all red.
Flashing red?
No, just steady
red. Yeah.
So and we bring everybody safely to a halt, except for the green light that the emergency vehicle's on. So it flushes the vehicles out ahead of the emergency vehicle, so it clears the road in front of the emergency vehicle. And this is the way that the emergency vehicle can do 60 miles an hour safely through the intersection, because everybody else is stationary.
So this technology, it's not something a button they push in the ambulance.
No.
It's just it's just automatic.
Always on. And so there's, that's a key, problem with those kind of systems, where the operator has to do something because he doesn't do it. No, this is always on, because it's like your cell phone. It's always connected, and the vehicles are connected and the intersections are connected. And then you can deliver these kinds of functionalities, not only keeping everybody safe, but there's another key thing that we do. Because because the emergency vehicle can travel at a higher speed through the intersections, we get to the place where it's needed much more quickly.
Sure.
So typically what happens is that, and because we track all the data, all this data comes up over the internet, we know the average response time for an emergency vehicle to get to a location or an incident, and so what the time is and what the distance is. And typically it's 4 or 5 minutes for an emergency vehicle with paramedics to get to an intersection. What we show is that if by making the lights green and bringing everybody else safely to a halt, we can save about 25% of that time. So we can save roughly a minute. Now, a minute, we can't say how many heart attack victims we saved, but in that minute, we've certainly saved a number.
Well, you've saved people from bad accidents in the intersection, plus getting the response time down lower.
That's correct.
Now, how many of these units do you have out there functioning?
We got several hundred, and we started.
Why wouldn't a city buy this?
Well, they are, fortunately, but at the budgeting process, don't forget that the state and city procurement process and wheels don't move quickly. But we've got some great videos on our website of showing how effective it is, and through our channel partners, we're deploying pilot schemes and now going through the deployment process of rolling this out. And so this is just one of the 5 sectors that we're in, but it's proving hugely successful. And again, what I've illustrated in 2015. What we were able to do by getting these out into the streets and deploying them in emergency vehicles and getting the data back and turning it into reports and information. One, we could show that that it was acceptable to the customers. Customers love it. 2, the channel partners are able to support it, able to deploy it. And 3, we're able to deploy it and get money for it. That gives us the margins we need to be successful going forward.
Let's stop there for a minute, because one of the things that impressed me about you was that you made a commitment, and you still have this commitment, where you said, look, I'm going to reinvest my profits, because that's how you have to run a startup technology company. If I don't expect me to show our company making a lot, because whatever I make, I'm reinvesting right back in. And that's a strategy that you still employ, isn't it?
Yes. There are various kinds of technology companies. In the dot-com boom of the 90s, and at various iterations, you get a lot of venture capital, and you see how quickly you can spend it. Mm-hmm. and everybody talks about burn rate and things like that.
And there's no revenue, though.
There's no revenue.
Right.
It's all trading dreams with other people who trade
Right.
dreams. I don't know how to do that. I think those people are much smarter than I am because I can't get.
Either that or they can't sleep at night, one of the two.
One of the
or maybe
two.
both, right?
Yeah, correct. So what you've always got to do is, and so building a high growth business is one thing. Building a high margin business is another thing. But building a high growth, high margin business, that's the real trick. And so what you then do is you throw off the cash that you can use to continually keep yourself ahead of the game and grow exponentially. And that's our goal, and that's our commitment, is to reinvest what we have in the margins that we make
Now,
to keep ahead of the game.
You've been able to do this without taking on new equity partners. Is that correct?
That is correct. We're very fortunate to have a great bank in Embassy.
Well, we've tried to be there for you.
Sure you have. And I think that business of, yes, you've got to worry about security, and yes, you've got to worry about your own cash flow, but you've also got to invest in the vision of your customers. And we've been thrilled how you guys have come on board and seen what we've been able to do and held us accountable. There's the normal financial due diligence.
Well, and I, by the way, a plug for a community bank. I don't think a large bank would have done this. It had to have been a community bank that wanted to help the community and see somebody's vision and want to invest in it. So
you're absolutely right. And not that I want to tell stories about other banks, but the larger
that's
banks.
okay.
But the larger banks, you can't actually get to talk to anybody.
That's true.
You walk in the front door and they've got, we're the small business banker. And 5 minutes into the conversation, he's actually a form filler-inner and a speaking voice for the computer that sits behind the scenes. But you never talk to anybody with any decisions.
Sure.
And it either comes back with a check mark next to it, but most likely comes back with a big X to say, well, you're not demonstrating that you're generating enough revenue.
So who do I talk to? No, you can't talk to anybody.
You can't talk to anybody because these,
right.
So it's been great to deal with the community bank, and where you guys have been able to be there for us and tell us what you can do and what you can't do and so forth. So that's been huge for us.
One of your initial products, I believe, was a device that signaled when a traffic light or a signal crossing was malfunctioning.
Correct.
And is that still out there?
Oh, yeah. That's one of the 5 market sectors that we're in. But it's been quite interesting is that as you deploy these products in the marketplace, you never know which one it is that the customers are going to buy. And so that's been a comparatively slow adopting product, because the reality is people are worried about pedestrian safety with their school children.
Mm-hmm.
They're worried about winter are the roads safe for travel in the wintertime? And can the emergency vehicles get through the intersections? And so, yes, all our products, incorporate this health monitoring, but people are not buying on a large scale, just monitoring the traffic lights because they can. Because, frankly, they've got bigger problems. And so we pivoted or segued across to use the same technology to deal with problems that customers really wanted solving.
So you have to listen a lot to your customers, I would presume.
Hugely important.
And how do you now? All right, let's talk about this, because you use. I think it's real smart. You've got what you call distribution partners or channel partners.
Channel partners,
which help you sell this stuff.
Correct.
It lowers your marketing expense. But how do you talk to your customer with the channel partner in between?
That's a huge piece of the puzzle and one of the tricks. You've got to understand that the priorities of a city in Florida and the priorities of a city in Pennsylvania might be quite different, and in fact generally are quite different. If I wanted to go and sell winter road equipment down in Florida, I've got to do a lot of selling and not much buying.
Sure.
And so what do you, and there's 1,000 subtle ways of that, or versions of that. But your channel partners, and the transportation business is particularly strong in this area, the channel partners know the customers. They know the procurement process. They know what their budgets are. They know that whether pedestrian safety is a hot topic in their local council, or whether it's emergency vehicles or whatever the topic, electronic signs, traffic data, any number of things. So the point being is that we listen to our customers through the channel partners. And they come to us and say, hey, Bryan, it'd be really cool if your basic product had this and this and this feature. We go off and develop that feature, and we say, how about that? And they say, yeah, we'll buy 100.
And a lot of these channel partners, you're just another product within their arsenal.
Correct.
Is that correct? Okay.
Correct. So what they do is they have a suite of technologies or a suite of products. So when they're doing a single sales call, they can go to the Joe, Fred, or whatever it is, and then say, hey, Fred, where are you hurting this month? Oh, I'm hurting for, pedestrian equipment. I've had an accident and my emergency vehicle fire chief's giving me a hard time about that. And so then they have a set of products that could meet that needs. And so that's been built up over the years. They've all got products which suit the areas and the customers that they're in. And so that's very powerful for us because we get a lot of extra salespeople, maybe 50 nationwide, maybe more, who visiting these customers every day. Not an
third-party sale is the most effective sale that you can get, too. When they're saying, I got this great company in Atlanta that can do all this stuff for you.
Yeah.
It's a better sale.
And then they also provide local and regional technical support and maintenance and installation sometimes.
Sure.
And it would cost us a fortune to set up a nationwide service.
I thought that was pretty brilliant on your part. You are listening to On the Money, brought to you by Embassy National Bank. We're here having a really good conversation with Bryan Mulligan, who is the founder and CEO of Applied Information, and he provides information technology to transportation area. He is an early customer of Embassy National Bank, and he has done very well, and we wanted to get Bryan back in and talk to him about all this. All right, you talked about your products. I think we mentioned 2 of them, and you said you've got 5 now.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go through 3, 4, and 5 real quick.
All right. So pedestrian safety. We started off with emergency vehicle. We've got intersection monitoring. But let's talk about pedestrian safety. One thing that everybody tries to do is keep the children safe when they're going to school. So there's a lot of culture about how you deal with school buses, rules of the road. But they also have identified that you need to slow the vehicles down, the traffic down around schools when the buses and parents are going in and out. And everybody's familiar with these, what they call school beacons. Correct. That turn
school
on.
Zone, yeah.
School zone beacons, which turn on. Well, they're actually remarkably difficult things to manage because when you get early release, when you get a snow day, then the beacons don't come on at the wrong time. Sometimes they break down. Nobody knows they've broken down until you have an accident and a lawsuit. So what we did is we've done 2 things. One is we've connected.
And the driver of the car doesn't know whether it's on or not.
Correct. And so what we've done is we've done 2 things. First is connected these up through the internet and the cell services so that we always know what their status is. We always know that they're working. We always know whether there's a lamp out. A number of them are solar powered. We know the state of the batteries and so forth. So we can always tell that whether they're working properly. Secondly, you can program them, sitting at your desk or on your iPad to say, hey, there's a snow day today. Your school's delayed 2 hours, and all the school beacons in your district come on 2 hours later. But the next thing is, and this is a new thing which we're deploying here in Sandy Springs and elsewhere, are the school beacons slowing the vehicles down like you think they are? And so, it's normally a 45-mile-an-hour road, and when the school beacon's on, you want to say, well, everybody must do 30 miles an hour. But are they doing 30 miles an hour?
Probably not.
And the answer is nobody knows. So what we're able to do is put a relatively inexpensive speed measuring device in the school beacon, and because we're always connected, we bring the data back of the speed of the vehicles, the average speed in that 85th percentile speed of the vehicles, and we can then use statistics, turning data into information, to say, hey, school, out of your 20 schools, this is the one where the traffic is still dangerous, where it's going by. And so that's, again, an example how technology can save lives.
Now, you're not capturing the license plate number and sending a ticket. I want to point that out. Our customer does not do that. So
No.
But you're letting them know that this one's dangerous, so you ought to put a cross guard here.
You put a cross guard there, deploy a policeman, put a speed bump, do some traffic engineering.
Right.
But it's the topic is called data-driven decision-making.
Mm-hmm.
In the past, engineering was what I call opinion engineering. Hey, Fred, what do you think we should do? I don't know, Joe. What do you think we should do?
Try something.
Yeah, try something. That was opinion engineering. Now what you can do is get much more bang for your buck by doing your remedial work where the data tells you the problem is.
All right, now that was 3. Let's go to number 4.
Number 4 is the winter. Are your roads safe for travel?
I want to talk about all this. Yeah.
Yeah.
You did a video about somewhere in Arkansas.
Little Rock, Arkansas, yeah.
And when that big storm came through,
Sure.
so tell us what you did with those cars.
Right. So what we did is that the patrol vehicles in Arkansas, in Little Rock, and this was a pilot scheme to demonstrate this technology. We have a sensor which comes from Germany, which allows you to measure the road temperature, the humidity, the air temperature, the water film thickness, the road condition, whether it's snow, ice, and so forth. And this instrument mounts with magnets to a patrol vehicle and points down at the road. What we do is we connect all that up to the internet, and we bring that data back, and it allows us to paint the roads with a line behind the vehicle of, are the roads safe for travel? And it's one thing to say, well, the data's this or the data's that. But what we're able to do is turn that into information. And Arkansas will use that very, very effectively during that big snowstorm to make decisions about school closings, to make decisions about whether
Sand trucks,
where these bad spots were, and so forth, because you had these patrol vehicles running around the whole night. And what they did is, as the storm got bad, the roads slowly changed from green to blue to red, and then they're not safe for travel. And then as the storm cleared, they were able to deploy salt trucks in the spots that were still red and clear those for the traffic.
By the way, you've got this captured on a video.
Yeah, that's it.
On your website.
On our website,
and we'll get to that in just a minute. All right, that was neat. And I can imagine someday WSB is going to grab that. And they're going to, and you said you're talking about putting it on the Hero trucks here.
Yeah. We've got some discussions underway to be able to deploy these this technology locally here, and so potentially that's on the cards for next year, is to see that on the TV.
The stations here are always looking for an edge over the other guy. And it would seem to me that they're always got the next best radar. So maybe that you play one against the other here.
Yeah, I mean that's, to be honest, is our customers' issue to decide how they want to let that sort of thing out.
Sure.
We're the technology guys behind the scenes, turning data into information and making the road safe for everybody. So
how, if at all, how would it have affected Snowmageddon? We just had that annual celebration.
Yeah.
And everybody's got their story. And that was just a year ago, right? Mine was 8 hours from the perimeter. So how would this have helped?
Right. So what you want to do is get data from the roadway, which tells you the roadway temperature, and it tells you the humidity, and to the lesser extent, the air temperature. But what that allows you to do is to be able to say, if the humidity is high, there's a likelihood of precipitation. When the humidity is low, you ain't going to,
right.
This morning, the road we're driving around here locally, the roads were all below freezing, but there's no risk of danger.
It was real dry.
Because it's real dry. And so what you can allows you to be able to do to say these roads are below freezing, so any moisture that falls on them is going to freeze. And that's the high risk areas.
So could we
we
have told people not even to go to work that day?
Absolutely,
Wow.
because the roads were all below freezing, and as the humidity moved in, as the moisture moved in, the vehicles that are driving around, the road that they would have painted behind them, in other words, this is painting on a map, I'm talking about visualizing
Sure.
the data, would have turned from green to red. And when the roads are red, you can say, hey guys, there's a real risk of this turning bad. And so the earlier you can get that information out, the more accurately and more real time you can get it out.
So that what you're saying is that we all are under the impression here that the roads turn bad just like that. But it was a process, is what you're saying.
That is correct. That is correct. And what happened in that instant is that the forecasters thought that the snow line or the moisture line would be 50 miles north of Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
And this was some late change which caused the snow line to be 50 miles south of Atlanta. And so that made all the difference to Atlanta because
Right.
it was. But nonetheless, when you've got all this data, you can make much better forecasts of the black ice risk and the risk of freezing. And you can also, equally importantly, prevent false alarms. So that in fact it was cold this
We
morning.
don't have any false alarms around here.
Well, you know, yeah, we have, but yeah, I get the point.
The Kroger Publix conspiracy false alarm, right?
Yeah, and so the more data you got, the more accurate your forecast, the more accurate the information that you give to the public to say this is the roads are dangerous, stay off them. Talking about things being dangerous, just going to touch on another topic is I've come to the realization that there's a huge difference between things being scary and things being dangerous. And what I mean by that is that we're all concerned about terrorism, for example. And terrorism kills, about 50 people a year on average.
That's scary.
That's scary. We kill 33,000 Americans on the roads every year. That's dangerous. And so all the money I'm not trying to make a point as much as of whether it's a right
But
thing or
let's
wrong
focus
thing.
where it's occurring, right?
But the risks to your children
Yeah.
are in the areas that are dangerous. And so all of these things of trying to prevent winter road accidents, it's a huge cause of accidents, is people sliding off roads, but they didn't realize that they were slippery. Emergency vehicles, school accidents, intersection accidents, and so forth. And
well,
so
at some point, I guess you could have this actually attached to an automobile and having it signal up on the screen. I would think something like that.
you absolutely can.
And then
but
connect through Google, and then have every car be signaled what's going on in different parts.
Well, yes, but there's ways of achieving that at a much lower cost. For example, the Department of Transportation is out there patrolling. The school district is out there patrolling. And so all those vehicles can be relatively inexpensively fitted with the technology.
Right.
It gets it all up onto the cloud, onto the internet. And now the device in your car is actually just an iPhone or a browser of some description, which serves you the data, serves you the information, and says,
It's right there.
and that's what's called connected vehicles. It's all coming much faster than we think.
All right, I want to talk about that. It's my favorite subject. Because I want one. And before we get there, this is On the Money, brought to you by Embassy National Bank, having a conversation with Bryan Mulligan on Applied Information, his company that provides technology to the transportation area. And Bryan, you're absolutely fascinating what you've been able to do with your company. And I want to get to, you just talked about connectivity between cars.
Connected vehicles, yeah?
And I want to go to self-driving cars. Let's just go right there.
Right.
How are we doing?
Brilliant.
I want one. Can I
Yeah.
have one?
Yes. You just go to Tesla and you buy the first self-driving cars are now available commercially.
Is there a cheaper alternative than Tesla?
No.
No.
Not today.
Not yet.
Not today, but it's coming at 1,000,000 miles an hour.
Now, there's been all kinds of talk out there about how they've gotten in wrecks, but I suspect that's overblown conversation, correct?
Correct. And the data is this. I'm a numbers guy. Google, who's leading the charge, they're driving 10,000 miles a week now. So that every week they're driving in their fleet of cars what an average of a person year's worth of driving. So they're doing a lot of driving, mainly around California. And they've been in 14 accidents.
Well, if you can put that many cars on the road in Southern California and only be in 14 accidents, I would say your technology is pretty close to being perfect.
Yeah. That's what the data is showing. The interesting thing about the 14 accidents is that 11 of those accidents have been rear end collisions, and 3 of them have been side swipes. The Google car haven't hit anything yet.
All right, let's talk about if all of our cars are interconnected, or some of them are.
Yeah.
And we know how Google tracks traffic on the map. They've
Yep.
got they track your phone and the speed of the phone and put all that together. Is there a day coming where I put in my address into the car and then it gives me the window in which it will go?
Yes, and in fact, Elon Musk's vision is that you're sitting in New York and you summon your car from California and it drives itself across country, charging itself along the way until it can deliver itself to you. That's a bit far-fetched, but it's coming.
I can see him thinking that way.
But it's coming that that transportation is moving from an asset business to a service business.
You made a comment on this show in 2014 that my children's children will look at me and say, "You mean they let humans drive automobiles?"
That's
Is
where
it
it's
coming
headed.
that quick?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, sure. It sure is. I mean, you'll just see the first steps. For example, your little Nissan or Volkswagen has what's called active braking. It's got a radar at the front that detects the speed of the vehicles in front of you, and before you hit it, it applies the brakes. That's just one of the technologies that is going into self-driving vehicles, where the cars are aware of all the other cars around around
Well,
it.
if all of our
And that's
cars
how
are
we save
connected,
lives.
then you really put a dent in the 33,000.
That's the big hope. What happened?
33,000 per
Yeah.
year. Okay. I thought it'd be higher than that.
No, but that's a huge number. That's a Boeing 737 falling out of the sky every day.
Okay.
How safe would you think about flying if a airplane crashed every day? You wouldn't.
I wouldn't think
But-
it was very safe.
But you'd go and get in your
But I get
motor
in a car all day long.
You got to get in the car every day.
And it happens just like that.
Just
when it
like
happens. Yeah.
And so what happened is about 10 years ago, there was a decline in fatalities per mile driven, and that was a result both of seatbelt adoption as well as airbags. They caused a reduction in fatalities. But the statistics have been remarkably stubborn since then. It's more or less stayed constant at that 33,000 a year since then. And so we're hoping that this next round of technology is going to now solve this problem.
Wow. Fascinating. I'm looking forward to the day when I can leave work and go back home and take a nap.
Yeah.
While the car drives me.
Yeah, and
I do a little work on the way home or read a book or something, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's coming. It'll be in baby steps. First of all, in sort of more closed environments like university campuses and
Sure.
so forth, shuttle buses, things
Sure.
like that. Then the next step is, which Tesla have done, is do what they're calling autopilot, self-driving on the freeway. The freeway use case is simpler to solve. And that'll keep you in the lane. And people have reported driving across country with 95% autonomous driving across country, and so it's here. It's here today, and it's.
Well, I want to move now. We've only got about 10 minutes left. I want to talk about your personality, the way you think, because we talk about the mind of an entrepreneur a lot on this show, and I think you personified that. Because I know from the first times we met you, you didn't know fear. You never showed that you knew fear. You knew where you wanted to go, and you were going to go there.
Sure.
And it wasn't a question of whether we would lend you money or you could find money. It was a question of if we'd lent you money. It was a question of when you got availability of the money. I mean, there was no doubt in your mind that these things were going to happen. And I find that philosophy just fascinating in order to be able to have.
Sure. I don't really think of myself as different. It's other people who sometimes say that.
Maybe we're different.
Well, yeah, perhaps so. But the point is that, it's a long time since somebody else is worried about my salary. And so, in 30 or 40 years ago, maybe you had job security, but largely that's gone. And so, yes, when you work for a big company and somebody else is paying your paycheck and you're not exposed to the cash flow problems, which most businesses have from time to time, you have this almost illusion of safety. And so you're not fearful. And you would be fearful if you had visibility of the CFO's figures and he was worried about how he was going to make payroll.
That's a good point.
A multi-billion-dollar company.
I've had this conversation before with my mom. Why don't you get in a big company and get a big pension? And I'd tell her, Mom, those days are gone.
Those days are gone. So there's still the sort of the illusion of that. And yes, obviously cash flows can be more steady in a big company than a small company. But more the point is that once you get used to that idea, it's not scary anymore. It's just how things are. And it's like, not unlike driving your motor car, which might be dangerous.
Right.
But you get used to it.
And you were able to look back and realize, hey, it was okay.
It was okay. We managed. We got through. And so if you're going to invest in anything, I'm a believer in investing in yourself. Why not?
Right.
Who's got your interests at heart any more than yourself? I
agree completely with that.
And so, I've done this a number of times, and my wife looks at me and says, "But you must be I know you're crazy,
We're going to
do
this again?"
Yeah. I mean, how many more times? Every time it's, this got
again, I got to do it again.
And it's never easy. I mean, starting a business in the big recession, everybody said to me.
Well, you were coming out of it in 12. Absolutely. It was huge.
It was, and in the transportation sector was delayed from that. And so, it was a big risk at that time. But my belief was that when the market turned, I had to have the products and the position to be able to exploit the next upturn. The business is trying to start a technology in an upturn. Well, you can't get good people and you're behind the curve. And that's where what's happened is because I made all the investments in the tough times, we've now got the products and the position and the people when the times are starting to turn. So we're very well positioned, and that's the thing which takes away the fear is when things are looking up. Then
and I agree with that, and just the Elon Musk story that at one point he was starting off.
Sure, he's done it a couple of times. Just the great read, if you want to read his autobiography, Elon Musk. He's a South African, as well. And
can you imagine saying, you know what? I'm going to blast a rocket ship off, and I'm going to bring it back and land it again on the landing pad.
Yeah, and even more bizarre than that is that he started off building PayPal, and he sold it for $100 million. And it was his piece of that. And he said, well, let's bet it all on building a private rocket company.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That makes all the sense in the world. And I tell you what, when I'm halfway through that and I haven't even made the success of that, well, let's build an electric car company. I mean, the fact that General Motors and everybody thinks it's...
let's build a battery farm.
Yeah, why not? Let's take on the utility. Let's take on everything that we know. Your power comes through the utility company. We all know that. And he says, no, it doesn't. It comes from your roof. Why not?
I think the chutzpah of the entrepreneur is fascinating to me.
Yeah, because you actually do see those kinds of things differently, and it's he's obviously doing it at a grand scale, but you see entrepreneurial opportunity everywhere.
Right. So and that's what we talk about on this show. You see it, you think you can build something around it. Don't be afraid. Go for it.
Yeah, and in fact, my big
what's the worst thing could happen? You could fail.
That's correct, and failure is just a step on the way. We've all stubbed our toes.
Right.
We've all lost a lot of money and done some really stupid things. And it's through that experience that I've learned to focus on what I know about. And so, I mean, I was talking earlier about I love going on safari. And I've often thought about starting a safari company. Bringing Americans to Africa, great business. I can just see how it would work. But I don't do it because I'm a technology guy.
Right.
And so I haven't, I don't give effect to some of these dreams. But you see
well,
entrepreneurship everywhere.
We've also talked on this show about how it's important to understand if it's really a hobby.
Correct.
You got to have there's a vision and analysis that you've got to do to make sure your hobby, before you decide to take your hobby and make money off of it, make sure there's something there.
Correct.
And if you take it to a business, guess what? It's no longer your hobby.
Correct. And so that's also where you just got to learn to be self-disciplined enough that not every, and I often say that, I have a lot of ideas and only 50% of them are good ones. But I can't really tell the difference early on. It's only through experience that I've been able to sift through good ideas or bad ideas or try things in a small way and so forth. And so that's how I've settled up in the technology business because it's what I know how to do.
Well, we're at the end of the show, but as usual, Bryan, this has been a lot of fun. And I think the last 10 minutes is probably I think, the more fascinating conversation. But we really thank you for being on the show, and so give out your phone number and your email address, and and then also tell everybody where they can go look at this travel video. It was fascinating what happened in Little Rock.
All right. Okay, so our website is appinfoinc.com, appinfoinc.com. I'm B. Mulligan at appinfoinc.com. And you go have a look there. There's several interesting videos, a lot of some case studies, and
it's not interesting. It's fascinating.
All right, okay. Appreciate it, Joe. Appreciate the time.
678-429-0379. Okay,
go.
Good. Well, listen, that's this week's edition of On the Money, brought to you by Embassy National Bank. And as I said, we are a nationally chartered financial institution where deposits are insured by the FDIC. This was a good show, and like I said, we're the #1 small business show on Business Radio X, and that's because we have great clients that come on and make it interesting. Follow us on Twitter at @on_the_money and then the #1. You can listen to any of our On the Money episodes at onthemoney.businessradiox.com. We're also available on iTunes. We're also out on YouTube now at the Gwinnett Business Radio X YouTube channel. So until next time, this is Joe Moss at Embassy National Bank. Be careful out there, but leave fear in the back seat, just like Bryan does. And we'll see you next time. Oh, and the last one that we always said, important, stay authentic. So there you go. We'll see you next time. Thanks.